to the must-have classics, where we restore history one classic at a time. Welcome back to another episode of our 1977 International Scout 2 restoration. On today's episode, we're finally going to reach that point of making this thing look a lot better, and that means we're going to be doing body work. We've got a lot to do on it. I'm actually going to show you a few things we've got. I've got the hood and the fenders here behind me, and then I've got the body sitting over on the left still. If you're curious on where this is at in filming and the progress, I'm actually stopped on getting that one running from the previous episode right now because I'm waiting on parts. So instead of wasting time waiting for parts, I decided to go ahead and pull everything out and start on the body work on it. So here, let's show you what we got going on here. So the hood and the fenders and everything, I actually stripped down to bare metal yesterday because I finally had some time. The hood is not bad. I have a couple spots here just where they had drilled out to pull a dent out previous, so I'll weld those up and fix that. And there's another dent here. Don't know if you can really see it, but it was there previously. We knew about that. And then there's just a few little dents here and there, nothing too bad. The front driver's side fender is actually the worst, and I'll show you why here. So this one, we've got a whole lot of holes that were drilled out in order to pull a dent out. I think I counted yesterday, and there's somewhere around like 27, 28, I think. And then we've got these rust holes here that were just bondoed over, along with some right there. Another hole drilled for some reason. And then the passenger fender, it's actually pretty nice. It had been replaced. It's not an original fender to this one. Really the only major problem we got here is a big dent right here that was filled in. And a couple little things up here. Some right there. And all that. The body, if you look over there, I've actually started doing some of the body work on the quarter panel. I had to do a little bit of rust repair, and I actually did that a while back, and I'll get to that later on. But first off, I want to go ahead and get the hood and the fenders fixed. So first up, I'm actually going to start on this hood, and I'm going to get this dent pulled and get those holes welded up. And to give you an idea of how we're going to go about on the process in this one, I usually like to do a skim coat of filler, and I block most of it out just to make sure these things are perfectly straight. I for sure will do that on the hood. I might not on the fenders just because they're fairly nice as they are. And then it'll get primed, blocked, primed again. Then the jambs will get painted. It'll go back together and get blocked at least 3 more times after that to get ready for paint. It is going to go a dark color, so we've got to make sure this thing is nice and straight so we can go and win some trophies at some car shows later on. But we can't do that without getting started on all this. So let me go ahead and start on this hood, and then we'll start moving on from there, and we'll get going on it. Alright, so after I did the body work on that hood, I actually got a little carried away and went ahead and did the filler work on it as well. So as you can see, I got this thing knocked out with some filler. I did a whole skim coat on it. and then actually blocked it with 80 grit, so that should help out pretty well with sand scratches when I go through and do it in primer. Now, as I said before, this thing will get 2 coats of primer, so then it'll get blocked out a few more times anyways. The hood really wasn't that bad. Some damage here that was pretty bad, and some there as well. And it wasn't really that bad. Now is when we have to move over to the worst panel that's really on this whole thing, and that's this front driver fender. So I'm going to start by getting all this beat out and welding up all these holes, and then from there I'll do the patches here, here, and here, and get those knocked out, fill up that hole right there, and I'll fill these 2 holes on this one. This other fender is not nearly as bad. Besides a couple little dents here and there, it's only really got this one big dent here, and then of course I'll fill the holes. Now all these holes here, they are for the half doors that go on it, so I'm not going to touch any of those. I'll fill that, and of course fill those 2. So yeah, let me go ahead and beat this out, so then I can get this done, get this in filler work. I'm really hoping to have this thing in primer pretty soon, but we'll see. So yeah, let me go ahead and get this filled up here and get these fenders knocked out. Well, as you can see, I went ahead and got these holes all filled up. That took quite a bit of time, actually. So then afterwards, I went ahead and did these patches here off camera, just because it took a little bit of time. Got the holes filled up here. So from here, I'm actually going to do a whole skim coat on the fender. And while the filler's drying, then I'm going to get these holes filled up on this fender. Just these couple here and up here. And get this dent fixed while the filler's drying here, and then I'll jump back in on filming where we're actually blocking these out, because I want to show you what blocks I use and how we're actually doing these so we can get these perfectly straight just like that hood is. So once the fenders are done, then I can finally jump back on to the body. But let me go and get this filler laid out and get this fender fixed, and then we'll jump back in and show you how to block these just for future reference, and we'll get going on it. All right, so I got this filler laid, and I actually went ahead and started sanding it some. So first thing I always prefer to do is I actually take my DA with 80 grit and just go over it to get all the highs spots off from the filler from laying it. It just makes this go a little bit faster. I don't go too far before anyone says, oh no, you used a DA on it. I don't go that far down, so therefore I can actually get it with the block. And then from there, I go through and start blocking this. The filler I use is actually Evercoat Rage. I've used some of the others and really just prefer this one. It blocks really well, lays really well, and it actually is a high quality product, so it'll last a while as well. And then the block, I use Durablocks, as you can see there. I've used some others in the past, and I was introduced to these a few years ago and really kind of fell in love with them. I really enjoy using them. They're really flat, and they do kind of have some leeway without being so rigid. So they help with getting these body lines and everything, getting everything blocked out real straight. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you what actually the best way to block these is. So I'll show you here. A lot of people will kind of, let's see, there we go, will, you know, kind of back and forth like that. That's something you don't want to do. You don't want to do that because it'll actually create ridges that'll go like this. And you don't want to do it like this as well, for the same idea that it'll create ridges like this. So what you want to do is you want to get the width of the block and go crossways on it. And, you know, kind of mix it up back and forth every now and then. By doing that, you're actually allowing for, if there is any flat spots, it'll be diagonal. And when you look at a car, you're never going to look at it, you know, sideways. No one does that. Which, with that big of a block, you're not going to have to really worry about that anyways, because it's going to make it nice and flat. And then, when you're actually doing that, you want to get it where you can kind of see here, where you can kind of see some of the metal coming through. That's where I like it. That's what you can see here on this hood as well. That way, it's not super thick. You don't have to worry about it being super thick and, you know, breaking out later on. But it is nice and straight, and that definitely helps with the finish quality, especially when you do 2 primes like we're going to do on this. So that way we know it's going to be super straight and not be stacked full of filler like there are a lot of people that do. I'm not a fan of that and prefer to just do it this way. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is too much filler. It's really not. If you look at the ground, there's plenty coming off, and it just makes it look a lot straighter, a lot nicer product in the end, and a lot less blocking work with primer. I mean, yeah, we're blocking with the filler, but it makes a better product, and that's what we want. So now that I've showed you how to do that, there's really nothing, you know, anyone can do it. I'm going to go ahead and finish up this fender, and probably go ahead and finish up this other fender real quick. And I'm not going to film it just to cut down time on the video. And then I'm going to get back to work on the actual body, get that quarter welded back on, because I haven't done that yet, and start on the body work. So then after that's done, I'll get it primed, do the first block, prime it again, and then we'll do the jams, get it all back together, final blocks, get it prepped and get it ready for paint. The paint scheme has actually finally been confirmed on it, and I'm not going to share that with you. Just know that it's similar to some you might see, but there's going to be some highlights on it that'll make it a little bit different as my air compressor kicks on. So anyways, let me get these fenders done, and then I'll check back in when we get back on that body, and we'll get this thing done pretty quick. Well, as you can see in the background, I've actually kind of jumped ahead because I got kind of motivated and just ended up doing some body work on the rest of this. So let me catch you up where we are on this. So the body work on the quarter is actually already done. Heaven and I both finished that up late last week, right before Christmas. And then from there, I decided to go ahead and do first mock-up on it. So I've got the fenders back on it. The hood is just sitting on it. It's not bolted down or anything. It's just sitting there. I had the half door taped on right now. I just wanted to check everything right here, make sure all that looks nice, and it does. And same with this side. So all that looks good. Of course, the bottom is kind of sticking out because it's not taped down. And then I went ahead and got the old grill back on, and like I said, have the hood mocked up. The tape on it, that's for something else that will be discovered later. I did that for a reference for a customer. You can use your imagination on what that's going to mean. The grill, we actually decided we're not going to use this. When I had kind of forgotten about it, and when I got it back out, you can see that someone has cut off those in there. And it's going to take a lot of work to make that look nice. So we're going to put a Super Scout grill on it. We're actually going to put a Super Scout tailgate insert on it. Yes, I know it's not one, but you know, we've got a lot more of the elements for it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we've got a pretty good idea on the paint scheme that you will probably see when we go into primer. Like I said, Not completely going to share that with you yet. So now, finally going to get over here on this quarter. And like I said before, it's not welded on yet. I just had it mocked up, making sure everything worked, and then I ended up doing the floors and this, went from there. So I'm going to pull it off first and get all the spot weld holes drilled in it so that it's ready to weld on, and I'll clean up all the metal, and then I'll get it put back on here, get it welded up real quick, and then I'll decide from there. I am going to probably do a skim coat on it just so I know it's nice and straight. Even though it is a new panel, you never quite know. So I'll go ahead and knock that out, and then from there we're really just about ready for primer. I do have the tailgate over here, which you can see I've started taking it apart, and I was gut bored and kind of started stripping the old bed liner off of this, because that's going to be one big task, is getting all the bed liner out of that interior on this. So the tailgate, I am going to do some work on it. I kind of want all these dents here out just to make it nice, and then I'll bodywork the back side. But since we are putting that insert in it, that's going to help a lot with bodywork on it. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and get this quarter panel knocked out, and then from there we'll start going through bodywork. Shouldn't be too bad. Can't be any worse than the floor was. So let me get this quarter knocked out, and then we'll get ready for primer. All right, well, as you can tell, I actually got the quarter panel off and got all the metal cleaned up, ready for it to go here. And then I went ahead and got these holes all drilled off camera. It took a little bit of time to get it all spaced out the way I wanted to. So now from here, I'm gonna go ahead and get it fit back on. It should be pretty straightforward. I already know it fits pretty well. The only thing I really have to worry about is this quarter extension here, or cab corner, however you want to put that. So I've got to make sure that gets all straight. I'll probably take a hammer and dolly and clean this up first real quick. So then I can get the quarter put on, and from there I can start getting it welded on, clamped down, welded on. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get this quarter fit up on here real quick, and then I'll start getting the welding on it. Should be pretty easy. Not really too worried about it. But yeah, that'll be the last major thing to do on this body, besides doing some body work on the quarter, and we'll be ready for primer before you know it. Well, I should not have said that that was going to be easy, because it took a little bit of extra work to get everything clamped down exactly where I want it. But I did finally get it. I had a little bit of problems back here, but the biggest problem I had was the wheel well. There was one spot that looked a little bent earlier, so I actually bent it out, and turned out it needed to be bent back in. So I bent that back in the way it's supposed to be and got everything lined up. It's actually fitting extremely well. Got to bring it up just a little bit right here, and then a little bit back here. And then this right here actually has a dent in this. That's why that's not lining up, so I'll take care of that before I get this welded in right here. Not that big of a deal. So now I'm going to go ahead and start welding this thing in. Shouldn't take too long. And like I said, once I get welded down a little bit down here, I'll actually take this clamp off here and knock this back up in the top so it fits exactly how I want it to. So it shouldn't be too bad. So let me get welding on this, and then, I'll see what else we need to do from there. But let's get this thing welded. Well, after I got it welded on, I actually went through and did all the body work on it as well. As you can see here, I did a nice skim coat on it, blocked it all out. I do have a few little things to do on it just to touch it up, make it real nice, but I ran out of filler, so I'm gonna have to get some of that. But because of that, I'm gonna go ahead and just end the episode here for today because I'm at a really good stopping point, and I'll actually do a full walk around here. So as you can see, we've got the fender done, the hood's done, the grill, got a new one coming in, fender here is done, quarter here is done. So in the next episode, I will actually have this thing running and driving, because I know in the episode with the disc brakes, I said that was gonna be next, but I ran out a few parts. And luckily I actually have that in here. As you can see, I've got the new gas tank in. So from there, I'll actually go through and get everything back together. And that will be on the next episode, is actually getting this thing running and driving again for the first time in quite a few years. And then in the episode after that, we'll get it in primer, get it all blocked, and start getting some color on it. And before you know it, this thing will be back on the road, looking pretty, going to car shows, winning some trophies, all that good stuff, and enjoying a life as all classics should. But that'll do it for today's episode. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It would really mean a lot to us. Comment more of what you'd like to see us do, as always. Please check us out at Instagram. On Instagram at Must Have Classics, and Facebook at Must Have Classics Rawls, R-A-L-L-S. Well, that'll do it for today, and as always, get those classics out and enjoy them as much as you can. Well, if you look here, I got all these holes filled in. That actually